Happy Sunday evening, everybody. Hope you don't mind the more casual look. Thought it was time for the hoodie. I mean, it's just been so busy. Today was supposed to be the day off, and then Deebo Samuel signed. Deebo drama over. But it's not a day off. There are no days off. Who am I kidding? July 31st, calendar about to turn to August. 49ers did take a break from practice. Deebo should be back out there tomorrow on Monday. The pads will be back out there. So it's a good time right now to turn the page. And yes, maybe I'll mention a few more things about Deebo Samuel, since that might be the reason you're tuning in here late on Sunday night. But I think it is a good time to turn the page to the rookies. This is the 49ers 90-man depth chart that I keep track of with a 53-man projection with the rookies highlighted in blue. So if you want to follow along over the course of this video, go ahead and take a peek at the chat section, because the link to get to that sheet is there. There you go. That's the link. I don't know if you could click on it on the screen, but you could definitely get it in the chat section or pinned up after this video is done with the live in the comment section. As I said, I highlighted all of the rookies in blue. That's the way that I keep the spreadsheet throughout the course of the year, especially after the rookies joined late April, early May. Now, these rookies joined the 49ers right in the midst of all the Deebo Samuel drama, right? That happened around mid-April with the trade request. And then we had to turn our attention to the draft after Deebo wasn't traded in the first round. Well, that meant that it was time to really accept reality for all the naysayers. The 49ers were going to keep him. They had contractual leverage, and it was time to start talking about the team that the 49ers would build around Deebo Samuel. So how are the 49ers rookies looking so far at training camp? If you have any specific questions, I may get to them a little bit later, but I just wanted to go through position group by position group so we could discuss these rookies in proper context. So we'll probably start with quarterback and move on down. But this big depth chart should help you visualize things. So please do feel free to open up the depth chart. I have the link there so you could take a look at the full thing. This is, by the way, why I don't mind wearing the hoodie right now, because the depth chart's going to be up on the screen. Periodically, I might pop this open and say hi, but for most of the time, I could be down here in the corner. And if I want to take a big drink of water, then I could make myself disappear. See, you can go on, off, on, off, on. And then there's this big, massive thing of water. I don't want you guys to think I'm juicing or something. I am getting a little larger, but it's good. I just had dinner, so I need to drink some water, stay hydrated. The new swimming spot that I found in the bay, by the way, before we get started, let a few people come in here on this beautiful Sunday evening. Coyote Point, San Mateo, right off the freeway. It's nice. I swim out. I mean, you watch the planes land at SFO from Coyote Point. Today, I swam out so far into the bay that I was right underneath the planes landing at SFO. Like literally, it's further than you think it is, right? When you're watching them from the shore, you're like, oh, they're just right out there. You start swimming, and it takes a long time, even if you're going pretty fast. Get way out there. And finally, I got to the spot to where, you got one coming every minute or two. Got to the spot to where they were flying directly above me. You could see the very bottom portion of the plane. It was one of the cooler things that I had done. I got a buddy. He's a firefighter. Lives up in the city. My good friend Justin, who just bought a boat, and he docks it at Treasure Island. And sometimes I'll say, hey, this is the part of the bay that I'm swimming in. Come and meet me. And he'll bring the boat, and we'll meet in a different part of the bay. So I got to get him to come to this part of the bay right off Coyote Point in San Mateo. By the way, the water is warmer. It's like 70 degrees in that part of the bay, as opposed to Aquatic Park and the Golden Gate where it's cold, but wetsuit helps. It's August in San Francisco. That starts in 2 hours. So rather stay down on the peninsula right now, be able to get some sunshine while we can see it in this part of the Bay Area. Anyway, how are the 49ers rookies looking at training camp? Here we go. Make that nice and big. Go through this position by position. Quarterback. I didn't make text titles for this, by the way, so we're just going to talk. One rookie they have here, a quarterback. I could highlight it. I could highlight that top row for you. Brock Purdy. How's Brock Purdy looking? Well, he's the third string quarterback for the 49ers. Obviously, Lance 1, Nate Sudfeld 2, Brock Purdy number 3. Now, I can probably pop open Brock Purdy's stats because I actually do keep quarterback stats. So why don't I do that really quickly here? Open up our QB spreadsheet screen, 49ers QBs at 2022 training camp. Here we go. So here's how Brock Purdy's doing. Day 1, 2 of 3. Day 2, 5 of 7 with 2 picks. Ouch. Day 3, 5 of 7. Day 4, 5 of 7. Cumulatively, Purdy is 17 of 24 with 2 picks and the highest completion percentage of all 3 49ers quarterbacks, 71%. Now, he does have a high interception rate, though. 2 picks and 24 attempts isn't very good, but they're all throwing interceptions right now. 49ers have to cut down on that. With Brock Purdy, I would say, he's facing the worst defense out of all 3 49ers quarterbacks. He's facing the 2s and the 3s, right? Being that third string quarterback. So theoretically, that much is easier for him. I don't think that he makes poor decisions. I think that if there's a limitation with Brock Purdy, it is a physical one. And that makes sense, right? He was picked in that 7th round of the NFL draft. He was Mr. Irrelevant, pick number 262, the very last one. And if you're a cannon-armed quarterback with a bunch of physical, God-given tools, you're not going to last until the 7th round. They're going to pick you sometime earlier. Even if you're terrible at seeing the field, they're going to pick you in the 2nd or 3rd round at the very latest, because there's going to be a coach somewhere that falls in love with the physical skill set and believes that he could be the person that plays God and can mold that physical skill set into something that works. I mean, you probably recognize the name Jim Druckenmiller. That's who the 49ers drafted to try to replace Steve Young. Obviously didn't work. Jim Druckenmiller ended up being very physically impressive, but there wasn't much else there as far as performing at the cerebral level at the quarterback position. So Brock Purdy, I think the 49ers love the way that he plays the position. I think that he gets plenty of zip on throws where he gets both feet planted in the ground with a nice clean pocket. But once it comes time to start doing some off-schedule stuff, that's when Purdy has gotten in trouble. His first interception went to Kadar Hallman, who was Samuel Womack's teammate at Toledo. And it was a play where Purdy was rolling, to his unnatural side. So right-hander rolling right, he can just throw it right. But if he's rolling to his left, he's going to have to twist. And then he just kind of fluttered a ball up there. If he was Trey Lance, then he might be able to get some mustard on it, because we know that Trey Lance can throw off platform. We know he's really physical. He could put some oomph behind those throws. I haven't seen the oomph behind the throws when Purdy can't plant his feet in the ground. So, I mean, still development to go, obviously. Purdy's working against the 3rd team. Can't make too much out of the stats, but I think that he's a good guy to put on the practice squad. Probably similar to Nick Mullins. Mullins was also physically weaker than your prototypical NFL quarterback. Even Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Garoppolo was an FCS guy, went in the 2nd round. He led the nation in passing in FCS and, even led FBS guys in passing when he threw for 5,000 yards senior season at Eastern Illinois. But he didn't go in the 1st round because he wasn't a 6'4", cannon-armed, 220 type of guy, right? So he went in the 2nd round, even though he lit it up. Nick Mullins went undrafted because he didn't light it up the way that Garoppolo did. But he still had those CEO-type skills. He still had the smarts to make some stuff work on the field. The 49ers still liked the way that he played the positions. They signed Nick Mullins. He was a backup for them. And now they signed Brock Purdy. And I think Purdy's probably going to start in the same spot as Nick Mullins, and that is on the 49ers practice squad. They're not going to carry 3 quarterbacks. There's no need to, right? You don't want to take up a 53-man roster spot if that practice squad is expanded and you can carry Brock Purdy that way. All right, let's go back to the depth chart. Well, we've covered Purdy. Let's go to the running back room. Couple rookies in there. I'll highlight it for you. Ty Davis-Price, Jordan Mason. Now, this is I'm going to be really, really clear about. Running back evaluations right now are snake oil. Pads haven't even come on yet. They do tomorrow. They do on Monday. But B, even when pads come on, the running backs are going to be the hardest position group to evaluate, because the 49ers are one of the many teams that don't tackle live. That means they don't bring guys fully to the ground during training camp. And so much of a running back's value is his ability to avoid tackles, break through tackles, pick up extra yardage, squeeze forward for that 1st down when some other running back might get stopped. So you can't really firmly evaluate running backs, at least the totality of their game, until that happens. And for the 49ers, that won't be until a game situation. And that's why Kyle Shanahan constantly says that the preseason is so important for him as far as evaluating running backs. It's not important for anything else for Kyle Shanahan, but running backs, he wants to give those guys some run and he wants to figure out what exactly he has. Now, there are some things that we'll be able to gauge once the pads come on. And one of them is pass protection. Guys will finally be able to pass protect. So this will help the O-line. I'll talk about them in a bit. But Ty Davis Price right here, 49ers third-round pick out of LSU. He's a truck. He's 220 pounds. Downhill runner. We saw the tape from LSU, from the SEC. But what excited the 49ers a lot about Ty Davis Price was his ability to pass protect. This guy, because he's a truck, because he's got an anchor, can take on linebackers coming in on blitzes. And if you never played football before, you talk to a running back about pass protection, I think you'll start to gain a bigger appreciation of how hard this is. It shouldn't be taken for granted like it would be in a video game. But you have linebackers charging hard, and linebackers are going to weigh what? Even in the downsized era today in football, you've got some guys at 230 pounds, right? I don't care if they're 210 pounds. Some linebackers are. Or I don't care if a safety is 210 to 215 pounds. He's coming in with a full head of steam. This is an NFL athlete with some strength, right? They get the head start because they blitz. They're moving. If you're the guy that has to pick him up in pass protection, you're not moving. And just picture anybody, especially a 200-plus pound NFL athlete, charging hard at you, trying to get past you. You have to have some sort of strength to be able to dig in while you don't have momentum, and that guy coming toward you does, and you have to be able to absorb that and essentially stop him in his tracks. And that's a really hard thing to do, especially if your main job as a running back is to grab the football and start scurrying around with it, right? In an outside zone system, no less. You have to be fast. So that's why it's so hard to play running back in Kyle Shanahan's system, because you're going to be asked to run fast. You're going to have to rip it downfield, and you want to feel a little light on your feet to do that. But you're also going to have to dig in pass protection. And that's something that the 49ers really liked about Ty Davis Price coming out of LSU. I think that's what's going to earn him some real early playing time, is his ability to pass protect. I haven't seen it yet in training camp because, again, we haven't seen the pads come on yet. But starting this week, that's something I'm going to keep an eye on. Same thing with Jordan Mason. Mason's caught some passes with the second, third team. But Mason, he's bigger than the typical 49ers running back of the past. He weighs 220-plus pounds. So both Davis Price and Mason are the two heaviest backs, and they're the two rookies on this 49ers roster. So let's keep a close eye on both of them now as the pads come on to see the ability to pass protect. And then when the preseason games start, let's see how elusive these guys are. Let's see how effectively they can break tackles, because Kyle Shanahan will certainly be paying attention to that. All right, let's move on to the receiver room. I'm going to highlight this right here. I'm going to grab a drink of water out of this obscenely large water bottle. Got to stay hydrated. Promise it's not vodka. This would be a lot of vodka, even for an Eastern European. Put it back down over here. Oh, that shook the whole table. All right, receiver position. There are three rookies. Danny Gray, who I have on my 53-man roster. He'll almost certainly make it. I mean, he would have to, I think, get hurt to not make the 53-man roster. Then you have Taser Mack and Tay Martin, undrafted free agents. Sleepers to make some noise this year. Maybe not the initial 53-man roster. I think a veteran might, here's one thing. I have 5 players making the 49ers 53. It might be 6 because Kyle's liked to take 6 receivers in the past, but you've got to make a sacrifice elsewhere if you're going to do that. So I would think maybe Malik Turner, Marcus Johnson, those are 2 vets that might make it, because Keyshawn Johnson is 2, but we can't tell right now who's in the lead. Again, we're waiting for the pads and everything to come on, because receivers, it's been passing league stuff so far. Moving forward, they're going to have to start doing more serious blocking as this gets more physical. But Danny Gray's has a carved out role on this team. 3rd round draft pick. He's going to be there to blow the top off the defense. And if we're talking about how Danny Gray's looked, one of the biggest plays of camp so far has been a touchdown bomb caught by Danny Gray from Brock Purdy. So rookie to rookie. Brock Purdy to Danny Gray. Got behind the defense. Now was the second team defense, yes. But Danny Gray's got real speed. He's got wheels. That's one thing that Jimmy Ward noticed during OTAs. Watch one of those 49ers videos they put out there with all the players mic'd up. He's like, who the hell's this? This guy's got wheels. And it was number 86. It was Danny Gray. And that's why they brought him in, because last year the 49ers, I mean, this has been a goal for Kyle Shanahan ever since he took over the 49ers. He's wanted to have a speedster who can stretch the defense out, and that allows the 49ers to get some of the underneath stuff. And early on in Shanahan's tenure, it was Marquise Goodwin. Marquise Goodwin had a good 2017, but then he flamed out after that, injury concerns, all this and all that, right? They tried it to be Travis Benjamin last year. That didn't work out. Travis Benjamin had one catch. It wasn't even in the regular season. It was in the postseason. So they didn't have that dynamic offensively. I mean, they had good receivers, but they didn't have just the pure burner. And Danny Gray qualifies as a pure burner. You look here, I think the Taser Mack and Tay Martin are really fast as well, but Gray is the pure burner. So that's his role on the offense. Ray McLeod is the slot/gadget type. Juwan Jennings is your big slot. Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk are your two stars. Deebo being the superstar, Brandon Ayuk trying to take it up to the next level as your star at that wide receiver position. But Danny Gray has a spot, and we'll see what more Tay Martin and Taser Mack can do. What I've noticed from them, though, is they can really move. There's a new level of athleticism that the 49ers receiver group has that has made Kyle Shanahan say, this might be the deepest group I've had, just like the cornerbacks. And he's happy that they have such a deep room, but it's going to be tough for guys like Tay Martin and Taser Mack to crack that initial 53 just because of how deep it is. But there is the practice squad, 16 players. It acts as a taxi squad now. You've got to have one. You've got to have a good one if you want to be a good football team. And that's why we track all of these rookies. All right, there are no rookies at tight end. So we can move on to here, the offensive line. A lot of rookies to deal with along the O-line. Hope everybody's having a good Sunday, by the way. I see there's 200 of you in the room now. Nice to see. I'll say hello really quickly. Oop, I didn't want to scroll like that. My bad. What is it, 9:50? Deebo Samuel, those of you who are coming in for Deebo Samuel talk, I did like 2 videos, long videos about Deebo Samuel earlier. The drama is over. Aren't you happy that the 49ers didn't listen to the emotions of social media? They weathered the storm. One thing about Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch that they can't repeat enough themselves is they don't sit there and run a football team based on the emotions of social media. They run it based on facts, not feelings. That's a good thing because there's a lot of feelings-based judgments in the world right now. And Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, I think, at least try not to subscribe to them. Now, that being said, the relationship with Deebo Samuel, the fact that, Deebo was in Kyle's office every day last year, all this and all that, that's important stuff. The relationship ultimately prevailed along with the financial and contractual realities of the situation. No matter what people on social media tried to tell you, Deebo Samuel had no recourse if the 49ers wanted to keep him. And they did want to keep him because he was so important to them. And it's a lot easier to come back and sit down at the negotiating table after some hard feelings, after stuff goes a little bit sideways when you've fostered and built the relationship with these guys. And I mean, we saw it with Raheem Mostert in the past, saw it with Robbie Gould in the past. 49ers, I think that's something that Lynch and Shanahan deserve a lot of credit for. And we could apply this moving forward. Patience in a business situation ended up paying off. Well, just because there's been inactivity on the Jimmy Garoppolo front doesn't mean the 49ers are mishandling it. Again, patience in a business situation is sometimes what has to happen. And in the Jimmy Garoppolo situation, the 49ers are simply playing the cards that they're dealt. All right, back to the rookies now. I promised I'd talk about both of them here. Not both of them. Both Deebo and the rookies here. So we're going to go back to this. We're going to go back to opening up the 49ers 90-man depth chart. By the way, if you're just coming in, want to follow along, copying it, pasting it, putting the link here. There you guys go. Okay. Philip Roselle asked the question. Nice beer there. Trey goes down for several games. God forbid. I have no confidence in Purdy or Sudfeld to win even one. The Niners dropped the ball here. What team in the NFL would you have confidence in if they had to start their backup quarterback is my question. Is there a single team that you would? Thanks for the question. Great question. It's just it's a question that I'm posing to you. It's really, really hard to win with a backup quarterback in the league because there aren't even 32 good starters in the league, right? There's like 5 or 6 teams that always have a terrible starter every year. So it's just, once you lose your starter, you're usually in trouble. The 49ers had a luxury last year when they had both Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance. And now they're only going to have one due to salary cap reasons. I mean, they could keep both of them indefinitely without compromising their long-term future to re-sign their star core, Ayuk, Bosa, whatever, in the future, then they would, just like Montana and Young were both with the Niners back then, but the salary cap exists now. So if you lose your starting quarterback, you're usually in trouble. Now, the 49ers are probably better insulated to lose their starting QB than most other teams in the NFL just because their defense might be the best in the league. You would think their special teams is going to be improved with Brian Schneider and a bunch of new players. So if they lose one of their quarterbacks, if they lose Trey Lance, that's going to come down to that. It's going to come down to playing defense. And it's going to come down to good special teams, ball control. And, I mean, you just have to hope that's enough because not in the salary cap era, you can't have an all-star team, especially at quarterback, because that gets expensive. All right, how are the 49ers rookies looking so far at training camp? We are on to the offensive line. All right, here we go. I highlighted the offensive line. Burford. That's the guy we need to talk about. Spencer Burford. Every single first-team rep so far of training camp at right guard has belonged to Spencer Burford, which at this point has to be considered surprising because we thought, they're probably just going to go with the incumbent, Daniel Brunskill. But Brunskill's busy competing for the center spot with Jake Brendel. And Brunskill was also the 49ers' worst starting offensive lineman in 2021. So it makes sense that the 49ers would want to upgrade that right guard spot. After Spencer Burford was drafted, I, quickly found the video of him ragdolling some guy at Texas San Antonio where he went to college. And I watched some more tape. I'm like, God, he's really strong physically. This guy, more than other previous 49ers lower round draft picks, and by lower round, I mean lower than the second where Aaron Banks went. So, you had Justin School go in the 6th, McKivitz went in the 5th. Other than guys like that, and, Daniel Brunskill was a free agent pickup, Burford's stronger than those guys were on tape when the 49ers first picked them up. So I said, maybe he has more initial starting potential. I kind of threw it out there. And I thought, there is some strength here. Maybe Spencer Burford can compete. But nowhere in my wildest dreams did I think that Spencer Burford would be at the starting right guard spot, the first team right guard spot for 100% of the 49ers snaps through 4 practices. And I thought that, okay, maybe this is happening because the 49ers are missing McGlinchey and Trent Williams, who was out because he had a child born. And McGlinchey was being eased back in. But even when those two guys were back during some limited reps the other day on Saturday, and Jalen Moore could play right guard, it wasn't Jalen Moore in at right guard. It was Spencer Burford. But I'm going to go back to what I said a few minutes ago. We cannot judge offensive line play fairly until pads are on. So Burford starting at right guard through 4 days, exciting stuff. The 49ers, there's a little twinkle in their eye. They might like something about Spencer Burford. They're at least giving him a chance that Jalen Moore, the Colton McKivitz, Justin School, those guys never had those chances as rookies. 49ers didn't believe in them enough to do that. And they were bad at right guard then. So they're giving Burford a chance that other rookies hadn't had before. Must be because they do like something about his game. I think they do like the strength. I think he's come, the body looks ready-made to me. He's going to get stronger as he develops his man strength, but it's not like he's weak by any stretch of the imagination. So the 49ers are optimistic about that, but let's reserve the rest of the judgment for tomorrow and beyond when the pads come on. Let's see how he does against Javon Kinlaw. Let's see how he can handle some of those bull rushes. Let's see if he's quick enough on the inside to be able to anchor down in pass protection against rushers who might be able to sidestep him. So all of that has to be determined here as we move forward. All right, let's make this bigger again. Nick Zekel. Zekel, he was one of the victims of not having pads for sure the other day. Was it? I think it was Kemdiche that got Nick Zekel. Robert Kemdiche. Somebody plowed over Nick Zekel. And it wasn't nice. But Nick Zekel, again, 49ers are looking at Nick Zekel. They love his smarts. They're looking at him as the potential center of the future. He's out of Fordham. I wrote a piece about him, and he's a late bloomer out of Fordham, too. I mean, he's a guy that was under-recruited, which is why he ended up at Fordham, stayed true to his commitment, came around and developed a hell of a lot in college, and then developed even over the course of the week of the Senior Bowl. Started off rough at the Senior Bowl. Was getting trucked early on and then held his own once the game came along. So Zekel's not a guy that the 49ers expected at all to be in some kind of mix here. In fact, I should move him up by a depth spot. That's kind of disrespectful. I have him at depth 2, even though we can put Nick Zekel behind. Well, let's put him at left guard behind Banks. I'm trying to cut and paste right now. I think I had to shuffle some stuff around. Yeah, there we go. Zekel left guard behind Banks. Undo that formatting. I should have done a paste special. All you Excel nerds are going to be mad at me for not doing Excel correctly in front of all you. There's a lot of pressure doing Microsoft or Google Sheets, not Microsoft Excel, in front of 250 plus people or however many. But I think I got it right. Zekel's in there. He's not going to be starting or maybe even playing this year, but I still have him on the inside of that 50-man roster. Maybe he ends up being practice squatted. I don't know. We got a long way to go. 49ers have a month before they have to make a lot of these decisions on August 30th. Other rookies at the offensive line. Schluter, Sam Schluter, he's been playing a lot of left tackle for the third team. He is a undrafted guy out of Minnesota. Again, pads aren't on yet, so I'm not going to make any overarching judgments. Donovan West, center for the third team. Undrafted rookie out of Arizona State. And Jason Poe. Let's talk about Jason Poe because he's the lineman, the young lineman, getting maybe even more buzz than Spencer Burford. Although it's tough to get more buzz than Burford right now. He's been on that first team for every single snap. But Jason Poe, oh, that's some good water. There's nothing better in the world than water when you're thirsty. Let's talk about Jason Poe. I wrote about Jason Poe. Why don't I find the article here? Let's pop this open on the screen. Give my voice a little bit of a break. A nice piece about Poe up on Athletic. This was on June 7th. So I wrote this about a month and 3 weeks ago. I'm going to pop this right onto the screen for all of you. Right now. There it is. Jason Poe vies for a roster spot with his unique versatility. Got to make that narrower, make myself bigger. There we go. You can check this piece out on The Athletic at the link that I'm putting in the chat section. I have, first things first about Jason Poe, Trent Williams believes in him. Trent Williams said, hey, Jason, let's work out this offseason in Texas. And they did. Then Trent Williams said, get on my private jet. We're flying to training camp. And they did. And it was Trent Williams and Jason Poe flying from Texas to training camp. How cool is that? Undrafted rookie out of Mercer. I mean, this is a guy that went to Hutchinson Community College where he played fullback, kind of an H-back type role. Went to Lenore Rhine, which is a smaller school in a tiny conference. Then he went to Mercer, FCS school. Mercer played Alabama, and Jason Poe held his own. That's one of the reasons why the 49ers really like this tape. He's the shortest offensive lineman in the National Football League. Only 6 feet tall, maybe 6'1". But he's built like a bowling ball. Normally, these guys are 6'3", 6'4", maybe 6'2" if you're going down to the lower end. But Jason Poe, he looks out of place, let's be honest. But he is so strong and so athletic that the 49ers said, we got to take a chance on this guy. And he has that fullback background. He might be able to play some blocking tight end for you. Those are discussions that won't be had until the 49ers cut down the 53-man roster. Different coaches like Brian Fleury in the tight ends room. Not Leonard Hankerson, the receivers room. Anthony Lynn in the running backs room. He might say, hey, I want this guy fullback. Bring him to me if you can't use him along the offensive line. But for now, the 49ers have Poe on the second team. He's graduated from the third team to the second team. playing guard, and potentially he can play center in the future. The problem is when you're shorter, your wingspan is not as long. It's harder to keep opposing defensive linemen at an arm's length. But Poe is so athletic and so capable of making some of these difficult movement blocks that the 49ers require that they really like him as a football player. So keep your eyes out on Jason Poe. Back to the 49ers 90-man depth chart. Let's take this to the length of the width of the screen. All right, so I've gone over the entire offensive rookies. Time to go over the defense, huh? Defensive line, there's only one, probably a good thing. I mean, it's impressive that the 49ers liked Kevin Atkins enough to toss him in with this group, and he's going to have a chance to, deliver some more snaps now, because look at all the injuries the 49ers have on the interior line. Armstead out right now, Ridgeway out right now, Maurice Hurst going to be out for a while. Kalia Davis is another rookie, but he might be out for the whole year. He tore his ACL in college, so he's on NFI. So only rookie really doing anything right now is Kevin Atkins out of Fresno State. Shout out to the Bulldogs. 559. Kevin Atkins, the 49ers had an area scout that discovered him, that noticed this guy at Fresno State just tearing it up, playing both defensive tackle. That's where Kevin Atkins is a 300-pounder is most natural. But he was also playing 5 technique defensive end for Fresno State. And the area scout knew that Chris Kasarik loves versatile defensive linemen. So he said, hey, Chris, we've got a guy that you want to check out. So Chris Kasarik tells Daryl Tapp, who is the assistant defensive line coach, to drive 3 hours down to Fresno. Daryl Tapp drives down to Fresno, works out Kevin Atkins, eats at the Doghouse Grill. That's important information. He got the tri-tip sandwich at the Doghouse Grill, which will be featured in a future episode of Lunch with Lombardi, because that's how the 49ers discovered Kevin Atkins. Gets the sandwich at the Doghouse Grill, eats it, takes the film back to Chris Kasarik. Chris Kasarik sees the film and is like, okay, I have to watch more tape on this guy. So he watches more tape on Kevin Atkins, and the 49ers end up entering the draft wanting to grab this guy, right? They know he probably won't get drafted, maybe late rounds. Doesn't get drafted, they sign him. So Kevin Atkins is now a San Francisco 49er, and you can be sure that they're happy about it. And he's going to have a chance here with the defensive line thinned out by injuries to do some work over the next couple weeks. Moving on to linebacker. Now, this is where the rookie situation is really, really important and interesting. Maybe not in the short term, but in the longer term. Because I wrote about it the other day. Talked about Azeez Al-Shaair. I could probably even reopen the article on Azeez Al-Shaair. Why don't we do that right here? Why don't we go to my page on The Athletic? Right there. Azeez Al-Shaair rounds out the 49ers linebacker group that may be the NFL's best. Okay, that's great and everything, but Azeez Al-Shaair is entering a contract year. So is Dre Greenlaw. Fred Warner's long-term deal. He's going to be around for a while. But since Azeez Al-Shaair is entering a contract year, and so is Dre Greenlaw, it stands to reason that the 49ers may not be able to keep both of them after this season. So you could already see their future plan in motion. This is where roster building becomes really, really fascinating to me, because the team has to think at least a year ahead, and they're thinking more than a year ahead. But if they see that one of these two, Al-Shaair or Greenlaw, will not be available, I'll have to make this bigger for you guys, will not be available beyond 2022 because one of those guys may get paid, well, then they have to figure out a way to pick up that slack. And this is why the 49ers have 3 undrafted linebackers on their roster. There's Jeremiah Gemmel, who wears number 47 out of North Carolina. They call him the general at North Carolina because of his on-field command. They have Marcelino McCrary-Ball out of Indiana, same school as Nate Sudfeld, but they didn't overlap there. Good nickel linebacker, can move a little bit. But the guy that can really move, the guy that stood out the most to me, is Segun Olubi. He's out of San Diego State, and Segun Olubi is former high school teammates with none other than the 49ers' top pick in the 2022 draft, Drake Jackson. So that's Corona Centennial High School down in Southern California. Segun Olubi runs a 4.440 at linebacker. And we know, based on what I wrote about Azeez Al-Shaair and everything we talked about, 49ers love themselves some fast linebackers. But Olubi's story is totally wild. He played basketball in high school along with football, but he played both. And, he didn't really decide which one he wanted to focus on until he realized, oh boy, I'm only 6'1", 6'2". Maybe basketball is not going to work out. So he started focusing on football, but it was too late to gain D1 attention. So he goes to NAIA. He plays JC ball. He goes D2. And then he finally ends up as a walk-on at San Diego State. Earns a scholarship at San Diego State. And then he ends up with the 49ers as an undrafted free agent. That's Segun Olubi, Drake Jackson's teammate in high school. And Olubi had an interception the other day. It was off a deflection. I believe it was a Nate Sudfeld throw, and Olubi made a diving pick. That burst, that 4.4 speed, I think it's fair to say that it might have come in handy for Segun Olubi. So I think he's a player the 49ers will definitely stash just because there's so much development potential for a player who is such a late bloomer but runs a 4.4 40. I mean, that's not normal. And that's not a guy that you want to lose. I think that's really moldable clay. So look out for Segun Olubi. All right, so now we're going to move on to the bottom here. We are going to talk 49ers defensive backs and the rookies. Samuel Womack first. Womack is a guy they have really high hopes for. When you talk about Samuel Womack, the nickel back, you're talking about a guy that's got a wingspan, like a real intense wingspan, about as long as Richard Sherman's. Except Womack is only, 5'9"? So the wingspan doesn't really match the height, which is great because as a nickel, you don't want the height to be crazy because you need to have agility to be able to get around, quick turns, quick, short range quickness on the inside. But you also need to have A, speed, and you need to have B, long arms to be able to deliver some of the pass breakups and blanket coverage and get into throwing lanes. So Womack has that rare combination, and he's got that 4.4 speed. The 49ers have a veteran, former first-round pick, Darqueze Dennard, that could be that first-team nickelback. They trust Dante Johnson to be the backup at nickelback. Don't expect Womack to start this year unless he's thrown into the fire. But Womack is definitely a guy they can groom for the future, and they benefit from having an excellent secondary as far as depth goes, so they don't have to force him into action right away. Now let's take a look at the rest of the 49ers rookie DBs. Tariq Castro Fields, he's been out there with the third team. He's been playing cornerback. Haven't been able to get too much of a read on him. Hasn't made any splash plays yet, but I haven't seen any big-time gaffes. I talked to his position coach at Penn State. I mean, he's a guy who's got good measurables size-wise. Might be a tick slow, I think he's a 4.5 40 guy. Not really a 4, maybe he ran a 4.4. I forgot, but with Castro Fields, you had a player who peaked earlier in his college career. Then some injuries and some adversity kind of made him fall off the radar. And the 49ers are trying to rediscover the magic from earlier. But young corners are going to have a hard time finding playing time on this team, barring injuries. Even Ambry Thomas and Deommodore Lenoir seem to be lower on the pecking order now than they were this time last year. At least Deommodore Lenoir is, because the 49ers have gotten so much stronger at corner, and that's good with veterans. I mean, they re-signed Mosley a couple of years ago. They still have him on the second year of his 2-year deal, but Charvarius Ward, prized free agent acquisition. Darqueze Dennard is now back in tow for another year. Jason Verrett is going to be back, so he's immediately, when he comes back, should be ahead of Lenoir and Ambry Thomas on the depth chart. And obviously you have Hufanga. This is now safety stuff, but Hufanga has taken that next step, and Tarvarius Moore is back in the fold. So the thing is, it's just going to be tough sledding for all these guys. And I moved to Quantrez Knight out of UCLA. Probably a guy the 49ers are looking at in that nickel position, competing with somebody like Samuel Womack. Maybe he could play some safety too, but I think Quantrez Knight, just a great Swiss Army knife type of weapon that can play inside, can move into a safety role, hybrid linebacker even. I mean, he's a DB's body, but you can do a lot of crazy different stuff in dime situations. Then you got Taylor Hawkins. Taylor Hawkins has an interception already in camp. Taylor Hawkins is a former corner from San Diego State. The 49ers will now be playing at safety, along with Leon O'Neal from Texas A&M, who can also give them some depth at safety. But let's be honest, they have 4 NFL players at safety as it stands. Talanoa Hufanga, Jimmy Ward, Tarvarius Moore, and George Odom. It's going to be really hard to crack this roster as a rookie safety. So, maybe I put Quantrez Knight as a backup nickel, whatever he is, it's still going to be tough to make this roster. So I think at the end of the day, the DB position, especially when you look at more depth at safety, is a lot like the 49ers linebacker position, where they have stashed guys for the future when they start losing some of these players. Tarvarius Moore only under contract for one more year, for example. Jimmy Ward only under contract for one more year, for example. So once the 49ers hit the fork in the road with some of these players that are only under contract through 2022, they'll have hopefully developed some of the guys on the right side of this line into potential 53-man contributors in the future. So that's what I mean by dual tracks. The 49ers are focusing on 2022 at the same time that they're building for 2023. Same thing last year. Jimmy Garoppolo, quarterback for 2021, get Trey Lance ready for 2023. 2022, that kind of stuff is happening all around the roster for the 49ers. And that's one of the key ingredients to building a sustainable one. All right, it is late. It's 10:14. I'm going to answer a few questions, but then it's time for me to rest because I got to be out at the facility tomorrow. By the way, if you want to look at this, then I'll put the link in one more time for you into the chat section. There you go. I know that you're joking. Trey Sermon's not playing fullback. I just didn't have room for him on the thing. That's why I put running back by his name. Don't worry, he's not playing fullback. It's Hokit and obviously Kyle Juszczyk. But check out The Athletic, by the way. The Al Shire article is worth looking at. Put that in the chat section as well. All right, close this up. I did tell you about Danny Gray. He's fast. Danny Gray can move. That's what Danny Gray's. He made a nice catch the other day, by the way. A little intermediate route. Hard ball to get. It was a bullet. I forgot who threw it. Maybe Sudfeld. Maybe Lance. But he had to reach out, and it kind of was on his fingertips. There's some traffic there, and he brought it in. Like that from Danny Gray. Good hands there. Greenlaw is at 100%. Do you think that Poe will line up a fullback in some packages like Trent did during the playoffs? I think that the 49ers will consider that on cutdown day. I don't know if he's going to make the team yet, but he can make the practice squad. They could call him up if they like him for certain games, so that can work. What's up with Jordan Mason? 220-plus pounds. We're going to find out how well he can dish out some contact when the pads come on tomorrow. I'm also looking for the pass protection from him and from Ty Davis-Price because I think that at that weight, those guys, the 49ers like those guys because they can anchor in pass protection against some linebackers that are charging hard. How late along till Deebo goes into full pads? This is about Deebo and the rookies, so it's a good question. Deebo might be in full pads tomorrow, but he might not be in team drills. I don't know. They'll probably have a separate ramp-up schedule for him, so let's just wait because he's out all off-season. Would be shocked if he were in team drills tomorrow. But he doesn't need to be in team drills. Deebo's going to get enough mileage during this season. So, well, we'll wait and see tomorrow. Probably take a few days, though. Talanoa Hufanga, nickel package linebacker? I don't think so. I mean, they might have some creative formations. They might run some 3 safety. They did last year. I think Hufanga is a pure safety, though. Hufanga, Ward, Tarvarius Moore, a nice 3 safety set. So, yeah, maybe the third safety in that situation, playing closer to the line, is Hufanga. We'll see. There's a lot of different ways they can do it. They've got versatility on this defense. How's it going? I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Yeah, I think it's too early to call this, although I'll say that Ray McLeod is the odds-on favorite to be the punt returner. That's why they signed McLeod, to be a good returner and also to be a good weapon on the offensive side. They're really focusing on special teams this year, as they should. What do we need to see from Lance from now until the preseason? I would just say growing comfort within the offense. Make your mistakes now. Start getting them out of your system. Good mechanical improvement. It's a process, as it should be. And we need to be, in our analysis, we need to view it as a big picture process, not as something that's going to be slow. Yeah, I'll be paying closer attention to the trenches tomorrow. It's the first day where it really matters with those pads on. I'll be paying very close attention to the trenches. All right, guys. It's been a long show. 45 minutes, I think, is a good amount of time. So that answers the question, how are 49ers rookies looking at training camp? For Deebo Samuel videos, I have plenty of them on the channel. I have an article up on The Athletic. You can go check all that out. In fact, if you want to see the Deebo Samuel article, right here. 49ers, Deebo Samuel agree on a contract extension. It's in the chat section right now. Go drama over. Good night, everybody.